Now this one might seem a little bit gross, but it's a tradition and it's one that gets passed on, and it's advice that I know that I've heard and you've probably heard it as well. And it's that using urine helps speed up composting. The idea here is that urine is rich in nitrogen, and it can kickstart the composting process by being a really strong green material that you add to your compost pile. Now, of course, you have to be careful about the amount that you're using, and you have to be careful with how you use it. Because it's high in sodium, you don't want to add too much to your compost pile. You don't want there to be too much salt going on in your compost. So you want to make sure that you're adding it in moderation. Now, if you're going to use it outside of the compost pile and you're going to use it as a natural fertilizer for your plants, you want to make sure that you're diluting it, that you're making a solution, a mixture of urine and water before you water your plants with this fertilizer. It absolutely will work as a great nitrogen booster for your plants, but it can be really, really harsh. The uric acid is something that can absolutely burn your plant if you're not careful. So use it in moderation in your compost pile. And if you're going to use it with your plants in your garden, always make sure that you're diluting it. But yes, 100%, urine is a great nitrogen source for your garden and absolutely will speed up composting. And that's a fact. Dry eggshells are 95% calcium carbonate, an absolutely great source of calcium for your garden. And that's why we're told that adding eggshells to the garden is a great way to get calcium into your soil. Calcium is a vital nutrient for your garden, and it aids in things like plant cell formation, disease resistance, and fruit and vegetable production. However, eggshells can take a really long time to break down. If you just took an eggshell and popped it into your compost, you would still see remnants of that eggshell for up to a few years. It takes that long to decompose. So if you want to get calcium into your soil more quickly, you're going to want to finely crush your eggshells. You're going to want to make sure that they're almost like a powder. So then you can mix them into the soil and you've already started the breaking down process for them. But yes, using eggshells in your garden as a great calcium supplement, that's a fact. Now, when you're considering mulching your garden, you want to make sure that you're thinking about the things that you're adding to your garden. And that's where this next tradition comes into play, where we're told if you use wood chips in your garden, and those wood chips come from a tree that suffered from some sort of ailment, that it's going to poison your garden. Now, of course, that is something to be concerned with, but you have to think about how you're going to use these wood chips in your garden. And you also have to think about the journey that these wood chips went on before they made their way into your garden. The wood chip mulch that you use in your garden, whether you buy it bagged from a store or get it delivered straight to your home, has gone through several processes of aging. These wood chips weren't trees yesterday. They didn't just get chipped down and then shipped to your home. This is aged wood chips. Another way to think of aged wood chips is that they've been composted. Not in the same sense that you would have a compost pile at home where you would combine browns and greens and it would create this nice rich soil for you to use in your garden, but it's wood chips that have been set aside and they've been allowed to sit and start to break down and heat up and have microbes and fungi come after them and start to break down the inside of these piles. Those piles continue to be turned, they continue to break down, and then after a year or two or more, that's when the mulch gets either bagged or gets put onto a truck and makes its way to your garden. So any of the pathogens that could have affected the trees that made these wood chips for your garden are long gone. They've long been destroyed by the process of aging and composting these wood chips. And also think about it, if this tradition were a fact, I know I would never trust getting my mulch from anywhere, because there is no way for you to know which trees were used for your wood chip mulch. Now, if you're still a little bit worried about wood chip mulch containing something that you don't want to introduce into your garden, you could always just, if you choose to use it, spread it on the top. Don't dig it into your garden. Just use it as a way to cover, be a nice weed barrier, create some beautification in your garden. You don't have to dig it into your soil. You don't have to put it into your compost pile. But even if you did, the risk is very low that you'll be introducing any pathogens into your garden that were carried from the trees that became these wood chips for your wood chip mulch. I'm going to call this one pure fiction. Another common tradition is to use coffee grounds in the garden. Whether you're mixing it into your garden soil or you're putting it into your compost pile. The idea here is that coffee grounds are going to help acidify the soil. So if you have acid-loving plants like azaleas or blueberries or hydrangea, then mixing in some coffee grounds is going to help lower the pH of your soil, and it's going to help those acid-loving plants thrive. It's also regarded as a really nice source of nitrogen, the green material that you put into your compost pile. Now, it depends on how you want to use your coffee grounds in your garden. If you're really just looking for another way to compost, a nice green material, absolutely go ahead and take your brewed coffee grounds and bring them out at the end of the morning and spread them into your compost pile. But if you're looking for something that is going to enhance the acidity of your soil, you don't want to use brewed coffee grounds. Why? Because all of the acid that was in the coffee grounds to begin with, once it's brewed, it gets brewed into your liquid coffee. You're drinking the acid that has been extracted from your coffee grounds. So if you're looking to use coffee grounds to help out your acid-loving plants, you're going to want to use unbrewed coffee grounds. But the fact remains, coffee grounds are absolutely a great addition to the garden and to your compost pile. You need to be careful, use it in moderation. If you overuse it, it can start to get a little bit toxic for your plants. But as long as you're using it in moderation and you're using it for the right reasons, adding coffee grounds to your garden is absolutely beneficial. And that's a fact. For my money, potatoes are one of the easiest crops to grow in a home garden. Really, you're just taking some seed potatoes, you're letting them sprout, you're putting them in soil, and you're letting them grow. You harvest them a few months later, and you have plenty of potatoes for your kitchen. But there's a tradition out there when it comes to growing potatoes that tells you exactly the best day to plant your potatoes for a bountiful harvest. And tradition will tell you that the absolute best day to plant potatoes is on Good Friday. But isn't Good Friday on a different date every year? And it can be a month earlier or a month later, depending on the year. So that's where this tradition starts to break down. When it comes to planting potatoes, you have to think about the fact that we all are in different growing regions. Some of us are in mild climates. Some of us are in cold climates. Others are in very, very warm and humid climates. The conditions for gardeners on any given Good Friday are not going to be the same. And they're not going to be the same year after year. So pinpointing a single day that isn't always the same day in order to plant your potatoes for the most bountiful harvest just doesn't make sense. So the best way for you as a gardener to determine when to sow your potatoes isn't tied to a specific holiday. It's actually tied to the conditions of your garden in your growing region. Make sure that you understand the frost cycles. Watch the weather forecast. But no, when it comes down to it, Good Friday simply cannot be the best day for every gardener to plant their potatoes. I'd call that fiction. Slugs and snails are the bane of many gardeners' existences. Now, for my garden, knock on wood, I've never really had to deal much with these pests. But if I had to, I knew exactly which direction I would go to combat them. And yes, that is adding a bowl of beer around the plants that the slugs and snails are attacking. Slugs and snails are going to be attracted to the beer, and they will go into the container and they will drown in the container. Now, there are many ways to trap slugs and snails that are attacking your garden, but a beer trap will not only trap, but it will also dispatch these pests. Other traps like grapefruit rinds or banana peels or cardboard will attract them, but then you have to get rid of them. The beer trap will do the entire job in one fell swoop, and that is a fact. Now, I've never met a gardener who purposely gave disingenuous gardening advice, but sometimes the advice just doesn't hold water. But other times, nuggets of wisdom are shared that you will absolutely take with you through the rest of your gardening journey. I hope you found this helpful and that you found it to be a good balance of fact versus fiction in the garden. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Let me know which ones you've experimented with and what your findings were. Happy growing.